Good afternoon. Welcome to yet another edition of the EQ Lunch and Learn. I am delighted to be your host this morning, this afternoon, depending on where it is you are tuned in from. Today, we are talking all things customer experience. As a nod to the earlier customer experience week, we're talking about customer experience agility, the ability of an organization to quickly adapt and respond to customer needs, preferences, and expectations. At the individual level, customer experience agility pertains to the behavior and mindset of employees, especially those who interact directly with customers. And at the heart of this skill is the individual's ability to connect with and utilize their emotions and the emotions of others. So today, we are going to be exploring what customer experience agility is in a bit more detail and why it's important for organizations and individuals. We'll be talking about the relationship between emotional intelligence, change, and agility, and how organizations and individuals can leverage this emotional intelligence to be more agile, increasing their responsiveness, flexibility, and maintaining a customer focus. As always, I have a fabulous panel who are here with me to tell the story. I cannot tell it alone, and I'm really excited about the panel that I have today. I'm always excited about my panel. We always have phenomenal people who are going to be sharing. I hope that you have brought your lunch because I can assure you we are bringing the learning. I'm going to introduce my panel one at a time, and I'm going to start with a very old friend, Rose Kariuki. Rose, it is such an honor to have you here. Rose's career from the get go has been defined by her fervent commitment to transforming talent through learning and development. For over 20 years, she has been designing, developing, delivering, and evaluating learning and culture transformation solutions for diverse organizations. I can testify I have worked with Rose on a number of occasions. She is a serious change maker, and I'm delighted to have her here with me today. Rose, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Ucha. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. I have with me as well today Emily Maranga. Really delighted to have Emily join us today. Emily is all about making things happen, whether it's optimizing logistics, creating epic events, and ensuring customer delight, or adding a splash of personality with her voiceovers. She ensures that customers are not just satisfied, but thrilled. And her ultimate mission is to make every customer that she serves smile. Emily, it's great to have you here with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mucha. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. And then last but not least, I'm so excited to see Wabi because we've been having some challenges in the background. Wabi, it's good to see your face. Woohoo! Wabi is an award-winning customer experience and communication specialist. She has over 20 years experience spanning across the hospitality industry in the United States, as well as the banking and public sector in Kenya. She is a board member of the Institute of Customer Experience, ICX Kenya, chairing the Partnerships and Resource Mobilization Committee. And she is the founder and convener of the CX Possibilitarians Group, which is a networking forum in Kenya. Well, actually, I shouldn't say in Kenya because the networking forum that is online. Wabi, it's great to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. So if you would like to connect with our esteemed guests today, you can find them all on LinkedIn. And I know that we are going to be sharing a link to their LinkedIn pages so that you can connect with them. But we are ready to get started with a very important conversation. The theme for this week's Customer Experience Week in Kenya was driving CX agility. Can we start with what this actually is and why it matters? Wabi, I want to start with you as I brought you on last. What exactly is customer experience agility, and why is it important? Wavi, are you able to unmute yourself? Yay!
There we go. Awesome. So great. I think you started off by, looks like we're talking about being agile, and technology today is making me feel like I need to be agile. Oh,
Yes.
Lord. There we go. So yes, I think you started off by actually explaining what CX agility is, and how are organizations able to adapt quickly to customers' changing expectations. And for me, more specifically, why does CX agility matter? Okay, so a couple of things. One, just from the definition, is because of changing customer expectations. Those will force you to be agile. You really do not have any option but to be agile. And for me, it's one of the things as CX practitioners that's extremely important, and why CX agility matters for us is problem resolution. Okay, so because when you have got quick problem today, man, problem resolution,
Yeah.
it is really essential for customer satisfaction. Okay, and an agile approach helps businesses identify and solve issues faster. Okay, and also for me, what else is important in terms of why CX agility matters is cost efficiency. All right, because when you're agile, it means you're streamlining your business processes and you are reducing operational costs, which at the end of it all, you're looking, to improve the bottom line. You're not being agile for the sake of being agile. Organizations have targets that they have to meet. They need to make money. Whether you are profit or non-profit, you still have to work within a certain budget and make it work. So that return on investment is important, and that's where CX agility plays.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much, Wavi. Rose and Emily, I want to come to you to see if there's anything you want to add in terms of why it's important. And perhaps, Rose, if I start with you first, I'm thinking about it from an individual perspective as well. Why is it important to be agile in this space of serving our customers?
I would say, just to reiterate what Wabi has said, today's world is changing so fast. And we saw it with COVID. We're seeing it now with the global recession. We're seeing it now with our national, with our economy, with the constant changes that we are having. And part of that individual agility has a lot to do with our own individual adaptability to the trends, to the changing trends. So today's customer has options. That means today's business has options. Yeah. So if I want to be a valuable resource for my organization, if I want to respond to my customer, then I need to be agile. I need to be adaptable. I need to be responsive. And that means I need to be listening to what is my customer saying. So listening really to the voice of the customer, which I think we cannot overemphasize. And also listening to what is my organization all about? Why are we here? What is that solution that we're offering to the customer that makes us so valuable in the market, that keeps us in business? Yeah. And how can I give that to my customer as an individual? How can I give that to my customer with my competence? How can I give that to my customer with my empathy? And I don't want to get into the EQ components, but because we have to connect before we collect. I like to quote my friend Esther, who's in the sales space, but she says we have to connect before we collect. So we have to connect with the customer, and you can't do that if you're not agile. You can't do that if you're not really listening and moving with the flow of the customer. So I'd say that in short, at an individual level.
Fantastic. Thank you. Emily, Let me allow you to chime in here about the importance. As someone who delights in making your customers smile, why is agility a critical component of your ability to do that?
Thank you, Mocha. I think I'd agree to what Rose just raised. There's so much importance in remaining relevant in the business, and as someone who really wants to, grow and get, or rather use the feedback you're getting from your customers to grow and make the changes, you have to be very agile so that you're able to remain customer focused. And I think some of these things that we're able to gather from is using data. Your data tells you a lot in terms of how my customers doing, and also just realizing that the business environment is changing so rapidly, like what Rose said, and you have to check 5 years ago, this is what I was doing, and this is the feedback I was getting. Am I still remaining innovative yet very flexible to be able to meet my customers' needs? So yeah, it's very important because of the competition, the relevance, and also, of course, to remain customer focused.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing to all of you. If you've just joined us, welcome to this episode 29 of the EQ Lunch and Learn. We're talking about customer experience agility, being able to navigate the ever-changing requirements of our customers so that we can meet and exceed their expectations. And it's great to see you online. Thank you for joining us today. If you're here, send us a message on whatever platform you're on. I know we have people on Facebook, we have those on LinkedIn and those on YouTube. Just send us a message to tell us you're here so that we can give you a shout out as we continue. Do share your reflections. And as we go along, interact with us and share your comments on what my esteemed panel are saying. So moving on, Rose, I want to come back to you. We've talked about what and why of CX agility, right? And perhaps you can start by just really reminding us again of whether this is just an individual thing or just an organization thing or both. And then can you tell us a little bit about the key ingredients necessary for this agility as an organization? So looking at it from an organizational perspective, what are some of the things that helps organizations to be more agile when it comes to the experience they provide to their customers?
When it comes to organizations, I'm smiling because when you think about organizations, you're thinking top down. And when you're thinking about individuals, you're thinking bottom up. In Kenya, this is very politically charged. So from a top down perspective, a couple of things. Number one, as an organization, you need to be agile in, first of all, your strategy, your vision. Where are you going? Yeah. What's your vision for your customers? How are you going to serve them better? How are you going to deliver what you're going to deliver in the best way possible? And that means then how are you going to make resources available? Your flexibility and adaptability in having resources available for your workforce around that. And then that also means flexibility and adaptability in your processes. How are you continuously improving and changing your processes and making them responsive to the customer today? Yeah. And then also hiring the right people. There are other things, but that's really the whole structure and systems of it. Yeah. So hiring the right people, the right fit. And that means not everybody can be agile. Yeah. I've worked in startups and I've worked in traditional corporates, and one of the things I've noticed, especially with startups, I think startups tend to be a bit more agile because they're constantly changing, and they're really, really demanding that you have that mindset of constantly changing and challenging yourself as as a member of staff. And that means also that the organization is constantly looking at what are our customers telling us? What are the business trends? Yeah. What are the new demands that we are getting? What's the data telling us? Yeah. So that adaptability at the organizational level, that agility at the organizational level, then creates an environment now for the bottom up. Yeah. Are we creating an environment now for the individuals to give feedback? Yeah. To suggest innovative ways of responding to our customers, because they are in the front line. Yeah. Not the senior executives. Yeah. And that also means then, are we listening also to the voice of the employee? Yeah. Because they are listening to the customer. Yeah. So I would say the two are so important. Yeah. And therefore the ingredients would be adaptability, yeah, which is like the holy grail of agility. It would be continuous learning, yeah, and it would be, for me, responsiveness, yeah, because you can know all those things, you can hear all those things, you can have all the data, but what are you doing with it? What are you doing with it? And so it's not enough for the organization to say, we stand for this. Yeah, the customer is at the heart of all things. The customer is the most important person. And then you're not allowing your employees, you're not empowering them to make those decisions. Yeah, when it matters. Yeah, when the customer is calling, and normally, and do stop me, Mucha. I can go on and on about customers. When customers are calling, customers don't call because you're doing a good job. Most of the time, they're calling because there is a problem. Yeah, they're not getting their needs met. Yeah, how much power, how much decision-making leverage are we given to the person who's in the front line, to the person who is in charge of the front line, and to the person, as you go up and up the organization. So that bottom up and top down approach, they really have to marry ultimately. Yeah.
I love that. And you're so right, because often we do have, organizations that say how they are so customer focused, and yet the bottleneck is internally with the internal processes. As I introduced Wavi, I mentioned how she's the convener of Possibilitarians. And recently, one of MD, and how it's such a blessing to work for an organization where the MD has owned customer experience from the top. Not that I'm trying to plug ABSA here or anything like that, but he was talking about the new MD at ABSA. He was speaking in a forum recently, and he was talking about the fact that when it's embraced from the top and drilled down as something that is critical, it makes a big difference for the organization. So thank you very much. And I like what you said about continuous learning, because we can only be agile if we're willing to keep going back and learning. And continuous learning isn't necessarily learning from books, right? It's learning from our past experiences. It's learning from what's happening in the marketplace. It's learning from our mistakes, indeed, when customers reach out to us. So thank you very much for that. Wavi, let's look at it from an individual perspective, right? What are the key ingredients necessary to drive agility as an individual? And then also, Wavi, help us or help someone who maybe works in an organization that isn't as agile. And so they find themselves working in that environment that is contrary to what Rose has spoken about, where systems and processes frustrate, takes forever to make a shift. How does one remain agile if you're in an environment that is not so agile?
Fantastic question. So Rose talked about from an organization perspective, and driving CX agility from an individual perspective requires a combination of mindset, skills, and a few strategies, right? And a couple of things, maybe you can call them ingredients, if you wish, that would foster CX agility at an individual level. One is what Rose actually talked about. It applies both to organization and also to individual, which is continuous learning, Okay, and so from a continuous learning as an individual, are you staying updated on industry trends, on best practices? Are you attending CX related events and workshops and conferences and webinars? You might not be in an organization that even necessarily pays for these things, but are you in a forum like Customer Experience Possibilitarians that sometimes will share forums that are even free for you to attend, so you have to make effort, towards continuous learning. It's your personal responsibility so that then you remain agile as an individual. Secondly, is your mindset. Okay, so are you wired to prioritize customers' needs and preferences and empathize with them and understand their pain points? It's a mindset, engagement here that we are talking about. Third, I think we need to dispel the fact that you can do this by yourself. So be proactive around cross-functional collaboration. You cannot do it by yourself, okay? So you need to collaborate with your colleagues from other departments. You need to share insights and work together to improve customer experience, So how are we working with HR? How are we working with technology? Apart from complaining about technology, how are we working with our, colleagues in IT? How are we working with, our colleagues in HR? Are we adding value, in these engagements? Or are we just whining and saying, customers are complaining? Are you part of providing those solutions? So then people are willing to invite you, in cross-functional collaboration. The other one that I think a lot of us CX practitioners fall prey to is time management. We are so busy putting out fires, but we forget to prioritize tasks that actually enhance customer experience, right? How are we making sure that we are prioritizing those tasks? We are busy firefighting. And because we tend to default to the space of firefighting, look, if systems are down and customers are complaining and there's an avalanche of emails and calls and what have you, you're going to deal with it from a crisis perspective, right? But we need to also get into a place of strategy and allocate time for tasks that enhance customer experience, okay? And the other ingredient is resilience. Man, you must stay persistent in the face of challenges. So resistance is going to come, not if, not when. It's a matter of when. It's not if. You will face resistance, my friend. So just prepare yourself psychologically for that. Now, if you happen to work in an environment that is not inherently agile, which, let's be honest, that's a lot of the spaces that we work in. So let's not say, it's only in public sector where people are rigid and all of that stuff. It's in a lot of our organizations, all right? So you can still foster CX agility as an individual. How? One, lead by example, okay? You cannot be complaining that people are not agile when you yourself are not implementing agile practices, So you need to lead so then others may follow your lead. This one reminds me of, the buses that go long distance to Mombasa. So one of them is we are the leader, we follow the leader, we lead the leader. Everyone wants to, be part of the leading. So it's important that you lead by example. And if you do lead well, then others will follow your lead, right? The second one is if you are working in an environment that's not inherently agile, you need to be deliberate about being an advocate for change, okay? So are you clearly communicating the benefits of CX agility to upwards and also downwards and laterally, So you have to manage up, you have to manage down, and you have to manage, across. So show them how it can positively impact the business. And the only way you can show them is if you also make time to understand the business and the business language, right? The third thing is experiment and learn. Start, with this, when you're implementing these agile practices, start with something small, see how it works, scale it up. Then build a network. I think we talked about it earlier, from a say one of the reasons why I began CX Possibilitarians was just born out of the need to find a space where we can network and where we can share ideas and experience and ask questions. How many times in that group people say, hey guys, do you know somebody who can do XYZ, or do you know somebody who's here? Can I get some information on this? Build networks. And when there's forums, we'll share opportunities for that. So you need to connect with like-minded individuals who are interested in improving customer experience, so then you can share ideas and strategies. Don't look at it from just a competition perspective. It's interesting how, if you looked at it that way, then the people who are in CX Possibilitarians actually sit in competing organizations, But at that point, it's not really about, we are competitors. It's really about a space where we all come together to improve CX. Because when we all work towards improving CX, then as a country, as a practice, we get to sit in a better space. And finally, be patient. Be just patient and persistent, because it takes time. And then celebrate the small wins as you go along, yeah? But be patient. And remember that even in non-agile environments, you can influence positive change through your own individual efforts and being committed to improving the customer experience. Thank you, Mucha.
I love it, Wavi. Thank you very much. You've shared some really awesome nuggets there. And I think, just reflecting on what you talked about is this idea that we need to lead by example and be the change that we desire to see. And I think sometimes when we think about, agility from a customer experience perspective, we can forget that demonstrating this or leading the charge or being what we want people to or being the change we want people to be means being agile in all other areas, right? Being an agile individual in general, so that it can rub off to others. And agility is a skill, it's one we can develop, but it isn't necessarily something that always comes naturally. And so we may need to invest in the skills to be able to grow and be more agile. So thank you very much for that. Emily, let me come to you. The ability to communicate effectively and collaborate are a critical component of a team's agility. So both Rose and Wavi have talked about, Wavi talked about networking, Rose talked about collaboration. So to do that, to network, to collaborate, one must communicate effectively, right? And this helps us as we collaborate and connect and become more agile. So can you share some strategies and tools that may be effective in ensuring this seamless communication within the team and across functions? Because again, earlier Rose talked about the fact that we need to work across functions in order to be agile for our customers. So how can we enhance our communication skills so that we're able to do that?
Thank you, Mucha. That's a very good question. As you were asking the question, I was just thinking, this is a very important thing for people to note, that it requires the right mix of tools and strategies to be able to meet the team's specific needs. So that said, one of the points I'd raise is just make sure, first of all, the team is well trained, and the skill development is also very good among your teams. The reason I say that is experience, all of us, there is nothing as bad as when you walk into an organization and probably you're following up on something. First week, second week, it's another person handling you. Third week, it's another person handling you. And all these times that you're going to that organization, they don't seem briefed. They all look like you're beginning the whole story over and over again. So it's very important to make sure that the team is well trained, not only even in terms of skills, but also in terms of knowledge. Yeah. Invest in these things and just make sure that the team feel empowered enough, to be able to face your customers, and serve them, really well. Number two, I'd also mention that, especially this goes to most startups where we're still coming up with structures and streamlining processes. I'd ask that it's very important to also make sure that we reduce the manual process. And streamline processes so that it's also very clear for the team on the things they need to do. How do they execute? Remember, also agility, it's about how fast you move. Yeah, so that is equally met effectively. Number three, I'd also go to how is the communication in between the team internally. Equip them with, we have these team messaging apps, the likes of Slack, the likes of Teams. It really helps the team to communicate internally very well, have discussions. And sometimes you are there with the customer, but there's a very crucial question where you feel you need to know if, this was dealt with before. So I feel it's actually very good when it comes to communication internally within the team. Just empower them and give, if some of these tools are actually readily available, we don't have to, we thank God for the technology. We're in a very good era. So just make sure you give these accesses to your team and they're well trained on it. And number three, I'd also mention in terms of, we have project management softwares. This helps the team in tracking properly, executing properly, remaining organized in the team. It's very crucial because it also enhances the collaboration within the team, where you just don't walk in over again. That said, I hope the tech bit is not messing me up.
It's okay. We're getting
Yeah.
you. I think your picture froze for a moment, but we could hear you clearly, so it was fine. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I'd also mention, I think it's very important for the team to feel heard. It's good when you're also working with a team, they are also able to give you ideas. And I think as I was starting, there's something I mentioned that you need to check if these tools that you've actually implemented, are they still working? But you can only get this if you engage your team in feedback and surveys, ask them what is working, what is not working, what can we improve, that helps a lot as well. And I'd say weekly meetings among your team, something that probably we take for granted, but they don't have to be long meetings. We can even have stand-up meetings, but this, it briefs the team on the how are we doing, on the changes, on the progresses of some of these things, on the challenges. The challenges do not have to wait for long until we conduct a survey for us to know that this is something that has not been working. But if you touch base as frequently as possible with your team, then you're able to make sure that the team is intact, they're collaborating well. If there are questions that are being asked, if there's a lapse somewhere, then you're able to jump on it quickly and resolve. Remember, also agility is the ability to move quickly and resolve and still remain innovative and ensuring that customer satisfaction is key. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. I like one of the things you said as you started was about building the capacity. We make a lot of assumptions about people's capabilities, and I think communication is one of those that we make assumptions about. And yet it is a skill that people need to learn. It's not a given that someone knows how to communicate effectively. We must invest as leaders in supporting the team to build those skills. Just checking in with our audience. Great to have a few more people here. We have some regulars who are with us and some who I think may be new faces. Wildest Dreams, welcome. It's really good to have you here again. If you don't mind, could you just say who you are, like the actual name? So that I can call you out by your name. P. Kitemu says, great stuff, Wavi. I think this was in response to Wavi's response earlier. And then we have Juliet Namunyak. Woo, Juliet, sorry. I got my tongue twisted over that one. So let me try it one more time. Namunyak. I hope I said that correctly. It's great to have you here. Juliet, Mac254. Great to have you here as well. We're having a conversation about customer experience agility. And there is so much we have learned so far from my esteemed panel, Rose, Emily, and Owavi. We've been talking about why agility is important in order to ensure we provide an exceptional experience for our customers. We've talked about some strategies for agility, both from the organization and individual perspective. And we've also spoken about how we can enhance our communication. We will come to you for any questions that you may have. So if you have any questions, you can share them in the comments and we will come to them shortly. But before we come to the questions, let me do before we come to the Q&A, let me ask a question that I want to ask to all three of my panel. And Emily, I'll start with you. Where or how does empathy fit into the picture of emotional intelligence for customer service agility? And what are some of the benefits of being empathic towards customers? And I'm asking everyone this because empathy is an interesting topic, and sometimes it's perceived as being soft. So I'd like to hear your perspectives about empathy and how it can impact our ability to be agile as we serve our customers. So Emily, I'll start with you, then I'll go to Rose, and then conclude the same question with Wabi. What are your thoughts, Emily?
Thank you, Mocha. So empathy is actually a crucial asset when it comes to dealing with customers, especially in the customer experience space. I'd start by saying, anytime you speak into a customer, every customer wants to feel heard and understood. But this can also, or rather, this can effectively be met by empathy, applying empathy where when the customer is speaking, repeat the words they are, saying to you. That makes them feel valued. They feel like you're listening actively. They feel like they're being understood, And then beside that is also be proactive, even as you deal with your customers. Be proactive in checking, read the mood. It's very important actually for us. Read the mood, and with that, then you're able to apply empathy effectively. Because with this, then that is where customer loyalty is formed, When anytime I go to Mucha, I know Mucha will always listen to me. She has understood me, and sometimes I don't have to really go extra miles in feeling like, am I being served? Rather, do these people really value me as a customer? So application of empathy in that case is equally important. Also, there's customer, you reduce the churn rate of the customers, because I know so many times when customers keep dealing with the same thing over and over again, there is no resolution, and then also they don't feel heard. Of course, there's the churn rate that goes very high, but in this case, of course, it reduces. Also, it improves the brand image, I must say. Remember, we said we have to remain relevant. We have to remain competitive in the space. So anytime there's empathy applied when dealing with these customers, it also helps your organization, your business, in the feedback we are able to get in the space. And also just remembering that word of mouth spreads quickly. So how you deal with these customers, how you make them feel valued and understood, is the same way I'll quickly refer to, Wabi, I'll quickly refer to Rose, especially when it comes to how valued how satisfied I feel as a customer.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much, Emily. I think it's an inherent human need to feel seen and heard, right? It's something that we all have in all spaces, and I think it's the same for our customers. Rose, your reflections on where empathy fits into this conversation.
I think empathy is everything. The reason why we're even in business is because we're empathetic in the first place. We saw a need. We saw a pain point. We saw a problem to be solved. And we created a business. Now, I know there is the self-serving part of revenue and profit and all that. But what keeps us in business is, are we really connecting with the customer to the point where they feel that they belong, that they want more? When a customer calls, there's a reason why they're calling. But there is the emotional need behind it. Allow me to use a story. And this is a true story. I'm familiar with a friend of mine worked for a microfinance, and 80% of their business is referral, which is very unusual. Actually, it's repeat business, not referral. It's repeat business. Most microfinances are really cutthroat. It's we give you a loan, we collect from you, And but a customer cannot wait to finish that loan and never go back to that microfinance again. Hopefully they don't auction you in the process. So how come this particular microfinance has managed to maintain 80% of their customers? Their customers are completing their loans and taking more and bringing their friends and family. It's because, especially during COVID, when people were struggling to pay, and their main business is small businesses, they sat down with the struggling business owners and asked, how can we help? How much are you able to pay? Because they understood that the customer, nobody borrows a loan not to pay. There are a few rogue people, but there are those who sincerely, they borrowed this loan to build a business and pay it back. And so they put really themselves in the customer's shoes. And so this is a customer who is humiliated. This is a customer who is stressed. This is a customer who, they didn't just see them as a non-performing loan or as a defaulter, as some as our tax people call us. Yeah, they saw them as people. And so when we start connecting with customers as people and not as loan number, as business number, then the customers also see us as people and they begin to value our business. Because human beings are emotional beings. It's the largest part of our brain. It's our survival mechanism. And so when I approach a situation, I'm always looking at it from, is this good for my survival or not? Same thing with a business, same thing with a social situation, same thing with an employer. Yeah, we had the great resignation during the COVID time, and now there's even the great regret and all those greats. Yeah. So ultimately, customer experience is about how you make the person feel, how you make the customer feel by meeting their emotional needs. If you're not doing that, your business can be overtaken by anyone. Everybody is offering loans. Everybody is offering vehicles. Everybody is offering food. What makes you stand out from the crowd? Why should they choose you? It must be that connection that you have with that customer. So empathy is everything, everything. And I'll just repeat myself. Connect before you can collect. And you can't connect unless you're really listening to what is the emotion behind the complaint, behind the feedback, behind the request. What is it? What is that need that that customer has? And the psychological needs are everything, really, ultimately. And that's what will bring the dollars. That's what will bring the dollars. Yeah.
I can hear it from your heart, right? You're not just talking about something you read. This is something that you practice and espouse. Wavi, let me come to you, and then there's some great comments on there's some great insights on the comments that I'd like to share. But Wavi, your reflections on empathy.
Yeah, I mean, being empathetic towards customers has many benefits, and Emily has, and Rose has even told us it's everything. But for me, in addition to what they've said, it's three things. In terms of empathy, can help you de-escalate conflicts and resolve your customer complaints more effectively. So it means then you have a smoother resolution process. Okay? And when you look at it, especially in recent times, there's a lot of laws and regulations protecting customers, from data protection to consumer protection, and organizations are scrambling to adjust and align to the fact that the customer has rights. And if we look at it from a CX agility perspective, then we will understand that it will help us, empathy will help us with better issue resolution if we recommend the correct solution, the correct product. If you just understand from that customer's perspective, and be empathetic to what it is that they're going through, then you will recommend the correct solution. And third, I think being empathetic towards customers, you know, practicing empathy in a professional setting can also lead to your own personal growth, okay, and improved interpersonal skills, because then you begin to listen differently, you begin to solution differently. And empathy really towards customers is a very powerful tool for building strong relationships. Okay, it improves your customer experience, and at the end of it all, if your customer is happy, then your business makes more money. And as to what Emily said, you've got a positive brand image, and then you've got your customer loyalty. So yes, as Rose said, empathy is everything.
I like that. I like that. And I like the way you concluded. Indeed, empathy is everything. We have some great comments from our audience. Great to have so many people here. Winnie, thank you very much for joining us today. Pauline says, great insights. Emily, thank you very much for joining us, Pauline. P. Kitemu says, we are human beings serving human beings. We are emotional beings. And so he's just really echoing the sentiment from all three of you. And, there's a big wow, connect before you collect. Agani Nyakundi, thank you so much for being here with us. It's great to connect with you. And Ruth Nyandenge, great to have you here as well. So thank you very much to everyone who has joined us. It's great to have you all here today. Continuing with our conversation, as I mentioned, we are going to ask for questions from our audience. I'm keeping my eye on the time. I know that sometimes it flies by, as they say, time flies when you're having fun. Rose, can I come to you? Are there any specific challenges or common misconceptions about integrating emotional intelligence into customer service practices? Would you share a little about those misconceptions with us? If you have your questions, don't forget to add them in the comments. We will come back to those. Rose, over to you.
I would say I'm going to speak about one specific one, and I say this having dealt with quite a number of customers when I'm consulting, and that is, how do you measure this? How can you possibly measure EQ? And that if you can't measure it, then let's stick to operational processes and operational excellence. Let's stick to NPS. Are they recommending us or not? And please, let's not complicate our lives. Yeah, that you can't just measure this thing. It's too mashy to, and we're in the business of, business. So it's that you can't measure this. But I think the truth is, if your customers are happy, it's going to show. It's going to show in your sales. It's going to show in the number of complaints that you're having. It's going to show in the innovative processes and products that you do have. Yeah, I loved where we talked about building relationships with our customers. Yeah, just how involved are we? How involved are the customers in your business? Do the customers have a say in how you do things? Yeah, it just goes beyond the usual surveys. So that's one of the things that, we just ask the customers at the end of the year to give us an NPS. It's just for a referral. But really, EQ is an integral part of business, but it's seen as a good to have and a complicated to measure. I would say that is one of the main things. I say this because I've had senior executives really push back that, how do you measure this thing? How do you even know it's happening? And it's true. It requires agility. Yeah, it requires that flexibility. It requires that innovative mindset. How can we measure this? I don't like to talk about technology too much because sometimes I think when you think about being responsive to the customer, we think about the systems. Yeah, but technology has evolved to the point where they're measuring emolytics. Yeah, the emotions of the customer as they interface with the systems. And I think this really tells you where the world is going. Yeah, the customer wants personalized service. That's EQ. They want individualized products. That's EQ. Yeah. And so it's not as mysterious as it looks, because it's also seen as, that thing, it is the domain of people in the psychology space, and those people in customer service who don't realize that we have a business to run. So I would say those are some of the misconceptions that we have, or that you also need to have a very high level of experience and expertise. And yes, it's just an awareness and sensitivity to what that entails. And just really, like, one of my favorite stories I've had is, I forget which hotel it was. I don't know whether it was a Marriott, where a customer's child left their stuffed toy. And the child was so distressed. And as you can imagine, for parents, your child is the most important person in your life. And so the child's toy was returned, with a long story about the travels and the adventures that the stuffed giraffe, that the stuffed giraffe went through. And it almost looks like it's over the top, but this is someone who thought of that child and the child's mother, because I'm sure that, for me, even that story really touched me. And I don't know that couple, like, they're from a different part of the world. I thought, if they did that for one of my nephews, I would go back to that hotel every single year, because they understood that this child was distressed. Their mother was distressed as a result. You know how it is that sometimes children will not sleep with a particular, toy, or, a particular routine. Yeah. And it sometimes it's just those simple things, those simple human things that you can actually implement. Yeah. So I hope I've answered in a roundabout manner.
Yes. No, roundabout
Yes.
manner. You've answered indeed. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And I hear you on this idea of emotional intelligence being somewhat an abstract concept. I remember walking the streets of Nairobi when I started working on this EQ thing. And indeed, it was, something that's, it's nice to have, but it's not seen as a critical thing. And yet, emotional intelligence is critical. And leaders who are emotionally intelligent understand that, and understand the importance of cultivating that environment within the organization, that people feel safe psychologically and can give of their best, because that then translates into how they interact with their customers. So thank you very much for that. Emily, we're talking about agility, and a critical part of being agile is being able to change. So how can this emotional intelligence help us to successfully navigate change?
Thank you, Mucha. This word change comes with a lot of emotions. Yeah, it comes with a range of emotions, I must say. And it's because it also comes with a lot of uncertainties, and unless you're really conscious, unless you are aware of your emotions, then it becomes very hard to navigate change successfully. So, and to maybe the first, like I just mentioned, is be self-aware. Self-awareness is key, because you're able to understand, how do I feel about these things? How, and with that, then you're able to regulate your emotions better, understanding that I'm afraid, I am anxious, I am scared, then with being conscious of all those things, then even when handling things, or when dealing with teammates, when dealing with customers, you're able to know that this is a trigger. Then I need to, you're able to action it on your side. But then that said, I'd want to mention something on leadership. It's very important that as a leader also you work on your EQ, so that you're able to hold the team firm. Because remember, there's change that comes with so many emotions among your team members. There are those who are easy, they adapt, they swim, they learn, they go. But there are those also that come with all these fears and all those things. And in the course of all that is bound to bring a lot of conflicts. So if you're not also aware of your own EQ, you're not able to handle these conflicts better. You're not able to make rational decisions, you know, and also coping with stress, you know, also comes a very stressful situation where you don't know what tomorrow holds. I don't know how to deal with this, the cost of change. So again, being very emotionally intelligent in these moments, then you're also able to handle your stress better. Yeah. And that said, I think if we just have a team that is well empowered with emotional intelligence, then adaptability becomes very easy for them. You know, then they are able to easily learn. They are able to, you know, respond better to the change of these circumstances. Yeah, that's what I'd say. So I think EQ plays a very important role, you know, in navigating this thing we call change that I know so many of us do not respond well unless we're very much aware of ourselves. Thank you.
I love that, Emily. You know, one of the things you talked about is something that I talk about a lot, this idea of the power of self-awareness. I actually call it an EQ superpower, being able to tune in with how you are feeling. The reality is our emotions either push us forward towards something or pull us backwards away from it. And if we're not paying attention when we're navigating change, we may think we are navigating it. So in the head, I'm moving forward, but the reality is my emotions are pulling me back, and so I'm having this backwards and forwards as I move, and that is really detrimental to the ability to navigate change. So thank you very much for that. Just taking a peek at our comments again. Our comments are coming through thick and fast. Min Krasi, thank you very much for being here. Great insights. Min says, Victoria says, very captivating talk. Human beings are emotional. Indeed, we are. Pascal, great to have you online. Thank you very much for joining the conversation. It's great to have you online. If you're online, whichever platform you're using, do say hello so that we can say hello right back. Wavi, I want to come to you. So we're talking about agility. And earlier, I think all three of you may have mentioned some elements of getting feedback from customers. But let me ask specifically, how can customer feedback and customer satisfaction surveys inform and improve agility at both the team and individual level?
Yeah, so remember we said that agility refers to an organization's ability to respond quickly and effectively to changing circumstances. And so feedback from customers provides that valuable insight for achieving this. Okay, so then how does feedback and satisfaction survey inform and improve agility? One, it helps us to identify the changing customer needs. Okay, so when you do regular customer feedback surveys, then you identify what's evolving, you know, in terms of customer preferences, in terms of pain points and trends. So you need to do this regularly. Okay, so then you can identify what's actually changing, what's actually evolving. And when you stay attuned to that, you don't wake up one day and go like, oh, the cheese moved. Where were you when the cheese was moving, right? So then you are able to begin to adapt and better meet those needs. Number two, it also helps with rapid issue resolution because feedback surveys uncover issues or problems, you know, that then allow an organization to address them. You know, so if you don't ask for the feedback, you know, I mean, look, in this day and age, sometimes we don't even have to ask for the feedback. Customers are on social media giving you feedback, whether you like it or not, my friend. So you just need to be able to be in a space where then you can institute processes and a culture of swift issue resolution, because then that is what helps you to enhance your customer satisfaction and maintain a positive resolution. Three, we go back again to where we started, continuous improvement. So when you have customer feedback, then you get the data that you require for continuous improvement. Okay. Now, agile organizations can then use this data to make incremental changes. And then you go back again, if you're doing feedback regularly, to see the changes that you made, have they actually, borne fruit, and has the feedback changed? So getting the same feedback month on month, quarter on quarter, year on year, there's a problem. So then you need to be able to do something about that feedback, so that then the nature of the issues changes. All right. Again, you will, using this customer feedback, you can prioritize, what features or projects that you want to work on. Sometimes you think, this is what we need to improve on, and the customer is telling you, no, imagine, no, us, this is where the problem is. So you need to collect that feedback, and you can see what it is that you need to prioritize on. Okay. 4, it's interesting from a customer experience perspective. We largely know what is ailing us. And so collecting the customer feedback is really for you to validate those assumptions. Okay. So then you can be able to then predict those future trends. And finally, it helps you enhance customer engagement. So you go quiet, you don't ask for feedback, you don't provide, your social media platforms don't allow for engagement, you're not responsive. Then customers will continue to have conversations elsewhere, and you're not seeing what it is they're talking about. So, and when the customers are more engaged, they're more likely to provide feedback. So it allows you to even do resolution, service recovery. Yeah, because then you are actually very open to feedback. So you'll find the customer is going to be very brutal on social media, and they'll keep telling you, this person did not do this person did not do that, I'm not happy with your processes, yada, yada, yada. And you pick it up, and you have got swift issue resolution. More often than not, that customer comes back and says, yeah, you guys are nice. Thank you for listening to me and for picking up my issue, so that then I can see that you are actually attentive and you are responsive. And we all know it's not like we're not going to have issues. We will always have issues. There's no perfect organization, right? So how are we resolving them? So then the customers can be able to feel seen and heard. So to make the most out of customer feedback for agility, it's really important to have a structured way of feedback collection, feedback analysis, and then dissemination of that process. So just because you've collected feedback and you've got this survey and it's telling you your NPS is this, your CSAT is this, your verbatim comments are this, so what are you doing about it? Okay. So you need to foster that culture that values customer input and then encourages continuous improvement based on that input. Mucha?
I love it. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think the point you made to wrap it up is so critical, that it's not enough to just collect the information, but you need to be able to analyze it and disseminate it so that people are aware of what the customers are saying. More often than not, the customers are telling you where the pain points are. The question is, are you listening and are you willing to do something about it? And indeed, customers do come back and say, okay, thank you. It was really great to have the feedback you gave. Again, referring to the group, the possibilitarian group, there's a lot of questions that come through and shout outs for help. And every time the help is given, people come back and say, oh, wow, thank you so much, for the great experience or for resolving the issue once I had given my feedback. And so customers will say, they may not shout as loud as they do when they're complaining, but they will come back and say, where you have resolved. And I think it's also an opportunity to engage with them when issues are resolved, to get them to share how the experience has been. And we need to not be afraid of feedback. One of the things that you said as well, Wafi, that's really critical, is if we're not having those conversations with them, they're having those conversations elsewhere. Let us not be fooled into thinking that because we're not talking about it, it doesn't exist and they won't find alternative solutions, because customers will find alternative solutions and they'll just slink away. As a matter of fact, customers who complain are better customers. I'm thinking of an experience I had recently where I recently moved, and I needed someone to work on some things in the house. And I reached out to an individual who'd done some work for me in the past. And since the last time, his fee doubled, right? So he came, he did the work, and I just assumed, I guess my mistake. I assumed that he would charge me the same. And I'm not talking about years ago. I'm talking about earlier in the year, just a few months ago. And so at the end of the day, when it's time to pay, he tells me, "Oh no, this is how much it is." And I'm just like, "What? When did things change?" And to be honest with you, I just paid the amount, but I told myself I'm not going back. I'm not using that service again. So customers who complain are actually good customers because they give you an opportunity to do something about it. Customers who give feedback are good customers because they give you the opportunity to do something about it. Alternatively, customers just walk away. And so we really need to value our customers. We want to come to our audience. I'm looking at the time. Do you have any questions for my panel? Do you have any questions you'd like to ask? If you have any questions, now is the time to ask them. You can share your question directly to a specific individual if you like, or you can share an open question. Just connecting again, Nyambura, it's great to have you here. Nyambura says, awesome discussion. Emily dropping some gems there. I think that came after the comment that you shared, Emily. So if you do have questions, please do share them on the chat. As we wait for any questions you may have, I have a question to ask the panel. And, I'm going to ask each of you to share your reflections. So earlier we talked about empathy, right? And how it's really important. And empathy is a conversation that, comes up quite a lot as people think about the how of empathy. So we talked a lot about the why of empathy and why it's important. But I'd like to ask each of you perhaps to just share one practical tip that you would give to someone who says, okay, I hear you. Empathy is everything, Rose. How do I do empathy? How do I actually get started on being empathic and not only for customer experience agility, but just for life in general? So as we wait to see if there's any questions that will come from the audience, I have a question. How do I do this empathy? Rose, if I can start with you, then I'll come to Wavi and then Emily. If each of you could just share one practical tip that someone can literally leave this conversation and go and apply in order to enhance their empathy skills.
I would say active listening. I've learned this as a coach. I would say learning how to be a coach has really had the biggest impact on me on learning this empathy. Like really listening to more than just the words. How is the person expressing themselves? What is their tone of voice? What is the energy that they're emitting? What are their gestures? How are they sitting? How are they standing? Just listening to the entire message. So in this world where we glorify multitasking, we glorify, busyness, it's so easy to miss out on those non-verbal cues. So that's part of it. And then listening also to the choice of words. Yeah, they really, really tell you what's important to this person. One of the and allow me to take you back a little bit as we are talking about empathy and and feedback and all that. One of my favorite concepts in customer experience is moments of truth. By the time someone is taking the time to speak to you, they're communicating to you what is important to them. And if you're really actively listening, you can see where the emotional investment is, what is really critical. So you'll see where the emphasis is, in the words, in the gestures, in the energy, in the whole message. So active listening for me is it. So look out for the emotional investment in the message being passed across by listening to the entire message. Over 90% is the body language, but also words. Words are so critical, especially if you're not seeing the person. You only have to listen to them, or you're reading the message. What's the energy that is coming across? What is not being said? Reading between the lines. You have to really listen and reflect. and reflect. Yeah.
You know, you touched on something that has been a learning curve for me too, as I've spent more and more time coaching. I've really had to and almost bring my mind back. You know, my mind has a tendency to kind of wander away, and it's constantly bringing my mind back, constantly bringing my mind back and saying, no, this is where we are focused, right? This is the attention this is where we are paying attention. And I think it's also had an impact in terms of my home life, right? So being able to really actively listen and pay undivided attention to people as you engage them. And I think that's such a powerful way to build relationships, because people want to be heard. They want to feel as though they've been heard. And so when we are paying attention, as you said, Rose, we're listening to what's being said, but we're also listening to what's not being said, and we're listening to how it's being said. I think 100%. Thank you very much for that, Rose. Wavi, how do I do empathy in addition to what Rose has said?
I think in addition to what Rose said, is we also need to look at it in terms of how we manage ourselves. So from a self-management perspective, have we developed the muscle and the ability to control or, redirect disruptive impulses, to be judgmental, around how we are handling situations. So self-management is really very important. And it is something that we need to be conscious about. And we had made reference to self-awareness earlier, but I think one area that deserves a bit of focus and reflection is self-management.
I love that. I agree 100%. One of the things I always say is that emotions are data, and that data is critical and crucial for you to make better decisions. And so we must become more self-aware. But just because emotions are data, but even though emotions are data, they are not directives. So just because you feel a certain way doesn't mean you must act that way, right? And I love your point, Wavi, that we need to check ourselves. We perhaps may have a tendency to be judgmental, right? So, not really allowing someone to express themselves without judging them for that. And so being able to suspend judgment, is one of the best ways that we can manage ourselves. So thank you very much for that. Emily, I don't know if there's anything left, but a practical tip that you could share to develop empathy for our audience.
Thank you, Mocha. This is going to sound funny, but to be honest, it's express empathy itself, especially when it comes to conflict resolution. Yeah, express empathy itself. So I imagine a scenario where someone is expressing how they feel frustrated. They are irate. Yeah. Beside, of course, suspending judgment the way you have said, it's expressing that I'm so sorry you feel like this. I understand why you'd feel like this. So it's actually expressing empathy itself. Yeah.
Short and sweet. I like that. Express empathy. So don't assume that the other person will recognize the empathy that you're feeling. Put it in words and express what it is that you are feeling. I read an article recently that talked about some of the empathy traps that exist and some of the ways that we invalidate what people are feeling. And it just came to mind as the three of you were sharing those tips for empathy. So maybe I'll crown those amazing tips with just talking about the empathy traps. So empathy trap number one is where someone shares something and you tell them that you have experienced something like that, right? You talk about your experience. It's really important when we are expressing that empathy, as Emily says, that we make it about them and not bring in the fact that, oh, this has happened. Oh, it also happened to me. And the thing is, I think we feel like we're being empathic when we do that. But what we're doing is we're, taking away from the person's experience. And then there's this idea of showing or highlighting the silver lining, right? So at least, and I think it's Brené Brown who talks about empathy never begins with at least. So when you're expressing this empathy, now is not the time to show them the silver lining. Just give them space and hear them and express the fact that you are standing with them and possibly trying to feel the pain, even if you don't understand it. And then the third one, which is the trap I fall for all the time, is problem solving. I am a problem solver by nature. So when you tell me a challenge you're facing, my default is to want to solve the problem. But empathy isn't about solving other people's problems. It's about hearing them and validating what they're feeling. And so one of the things I've learned to ask people around me is, are you sharing for me to listen, or would you like me to share a solution before I jump into solution solving? Because sometimes someone isn't looking for a solution. They're just looking to be heard. We have a question here. Daphne, thank you very much. We have a question from Daphne. So I want to place it here. And I think it's a question that anyone, any of you, not either, because there's three, any of you can respond to. Daphne says, empathy sometimes allows someone to walk all over you because you overly rationalize their behavior. How do you avoid this? And this is a question that comes up a lot. Sometimes it's asked this way: is empathy being soft? Right? So how do we handle this? How do I extend empathy without being a walkover? Who wants to dive in?
If I may.
Yes, Wabi, go ahead.
I think we need to make sure that we don't confuse being empathetic with being doormats. So we need to ensure, even as we are empathetic, it doesn't mean that we don't have capacity to tell the customer, no, that which you are asking for is not available in that specific format. However, there is this other way that you can handle the situation. Or for those of us, say, who are in the financial sector, I've been in the finance, and so sometimes a customer might want a loan, and maybe they're not ready, they're not qualified yet, So it doesn't mean that, you empathize with their situation and tell them, yes, I can give you this loan, and you can't, So you need to be able, empathy is also in the how that you handle it. So it's not just about agreeing and accepting to everything. It's in how you are handling it. So it's not about being walked all over. You can give feedback and you can give a no, and you can do it with empathy and decorum. That doesn't make the customer feel that they were mishandled.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, you've said it so well, Wabi. I just want to add something, that sometimes empathy is just giving the person space to be heard. Sometimes we think that is such a small thing, but even just that they've been heard is enough. Even if you're not going to, you took the words out of my mouth, Wabi. It's not about agreement. It's just creating the space for the person to be heard. And to be told no in a nice way, the how. Yeah, that is all I'm going to add. Yeah, create the space. Yes.
Yeah. I really like that. I think it's a really powerful thought that empathy is not necessarily agreeing, but it's giving people the space. It's recognizing that they are entitled to that space. And one of the things I always highlight is the fact that emotions are rational. Right? So what I mean by that is every emotion that you feel is rational. It makes sense for you to feel that emotion given the environment within which you are. But sometimes our response to the emotion is irrational. right? And so empathy is recognizing that, as not that you would say it, irrational as this person's response to their emotion is, they are entitled to that emotion because of whatever it is that they are going through. And it's giving them space to feel what they are feeling without judgment. And then, if the answer is no, being able to say no in a way that still respects them. Or if we need to set boundaries, setting boundaries in a way that still respects the other. So thank you. I hope that that has answered the question. We are wrapping up our conversation, and I want to quickly allow my panelists to give their parting shot. Thank you so much to all of you for being here. David, I see your comment. That one about problem solving caught me. I have failed over and over again. It makes absolute sense. Yes. Um, thank you so much, Rose. Thank you, Wavi. Thank you, Emily. It's such a delight to have you here. And it has been such an amazing conversation. As always, I tell you, you bring your lunch and we will bring the learning. And indeed, the learning has dropped and dropped and dropped. So allow me to appreciate each of my panelists and allow them the space to give their 30-second parting shot before we wrap up for today. Wavi, what is your parting shot as we close our conversation for today?
I cannot sing to save my life, but I have an appreciation for good music, good entertainment. And so I think for me, let me use that as an analogy. Customer agility is really the art of dancing to that ever-changing rhythm of our customers' needs. Wow. So we must tune in, we must pivot gracefully, and we must lead with empathy, which we have talked about a lot today. So in this dynamic performance, the customer takes the center stage. It's not us, okay? And our ability to improvise and keep going is what makes you the star of the show, okay? So my parting shot is that be agile, stay responsive, and remain committed to delivering those exceptional customer experiences. Thank you, Buja.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Wavi. What a powerful parting shot. I just have this vision of dancing with customers and, yes, and being able to improvise. I think that is such a powerful reflection in my mind. Rose, what is your parting shot?
How do I match that? I mean, Wabi should have been last.
No pressure, Rose. No pressure. My senior Rose.
I would say agility means embracing change. Embrace the feedback. So embrace what the customer brings with you. Embrace the change and go with the flow. Yeah. Dance with the flow. Now that we are
dance with the flow. Now that we are dancing. Now that we are dancing. Emily.
Like salsa,
yes.
We need to just embrace it. Just embrace it.
Embrace it. Yes, Emily, your parting shot.
Yeah, don't be afraid.
I love that. Don't be afraid. Embrace it. I love that. Sorry, Emily, go ahead.
Yeah, I love that as well. I'd say then agility in customer interaction is about just, understanding that every situation you're dealing with is unique in its own way, and every customer you're dealing with is different. Yeah. And so anytime you get a chance to serve a customer, it's another chance to excel. Yeah. So yeah, and also just put in mind that agility is not just a skill that we need to have, it's also a mindset.
Ooh, I tell you, are they not just dropping gems left, right, and center? I can see from your comments you agree. Reford Momani says, great insight. Laura Wamunyu says, this was such a great conversation worth every minute. Thank you, ladies. I think Laura has said it for me. And Piki Temu is giving us thumbs up and music notes and celebrating us in the comments. Ladies, thank you so much for your time. It is truly appreciated. We do not take for granted that you've given up this time to spend with us. Thank you for always being available to us at PTS when we call. Really appreciate it. Catherine, great to have you online. I can see that those online have really enjoyed the conversation we've had. So there you have it. We've come to the end. Allow me to release my panelists. Rose, thank you very much for being here. It's great to connect with you once again. So let me say goodbye. Wavi, thank you so much for your time. Great to connect with you too. Emily, thank you so much for joining. As we bring our conversation to a close, it has indeed been an amazing session. Caroline, great to have you here. Agility is a skill that you can develop, and at the heart of customer experience agility is empathy, a critical emotional intelligence skill. Keep it locked right here as we continue. We will continue to share great insights on emotional intelligence. Our next episode of the EQ Lunch and Learn will be talking about reflections. So our theme will be reflections, and we'll be looking at the year that was. So make sure that you diarize the last Wednesday of November, same time, same place. The last Wednesday of November is the 29th. We'll be reflecting on the year that was and looking at how emotional intelligence can help us to introspect, reflect, so that we can plan for the year ahead. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Mucha Mlingo, and it has been a true honor to facilitate this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us. We would like to close with just a reflection about who we are at PTS and what we do. Take care, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining.